This is a story about how a single loading screen tooltip sent me down a 5-day rabbit hole. Rainbow donuts feature a mix of flavors. They sometimes grant slightly stronger flavor powers than other varieties of donut. This is so fantastically vague that I just had to know. How do I make rainbow donuts? How much stronger is slightly stronger? And are they better than focusing on a single flavor? Answering these questions led to me making and recording literally more than 1,000 donuts. I had to program 2 different tools to make that possible, and ultimately I wound up with some really great information. And in addition to those previous questions, I also wanted to know if rainbow donuts change the equation for some of the most common comments I get about the Mega Dimension DLC. What berries should I be using for shiny hunting? What berries should I be using for farming berries? How do I spend less time resetting donuts in front of Ansha? These are all great questions, and I've got some great answers to those coming up, and the results might surprise you. This is going to be a long one, but I'll do my best to timestamp everything down below. But before we get started, I only have one request. Please click the subscribe button. If you've ever learned anything from my videos, it is a zero-cost way to say thank you and support me. You might be surprised to learn that I'm still over 30,000 subscribers shy of the 100K milestone. I've had many videos get past 50K, 100K, 200K, even 500K to 1 million views on long videos. But I don't shill the button enough, so over 80% of my watch time is from non-subscribers. So please, for this one video, if you guys collectively click the subscribe button right now, I could literally skyrocket to 100K before 2026 and get a plaque on my wall. All right, that's out of the way. It's time for the rainbow donut rabbit hole. Immediately after seeing that tooltip, I went to Ansha and I started mixing berries to see if it was just a random chance with very closely mixed flavor scores to roll rainbow, because I didn't know how to make them yet. No dice. Naturally, this eventually led to me trying donuts where the flavor scores were perfectly matched, and eureka. That is how you make rainbow donuts. They are created when 2 or more flavor scores in a donut recipe are matching exactly. The rolls are still random. There's no guaranteed recipes like Scarlet and Violet sandwiches. However, the tooltip does suggest that they should generate at higher average levels than their component scores would typically allow. So we're going to put that to the test later. But for now, I was focused on one thing: sparkling power, alpha, and encounter power. And this was ultimately a stupid decision for reasons that should be clear if you watch my last video, but I spent a ridiculous amount of time crafting perfectly balanced, sweet, and fresh donuts. I probably made a good 50 of them before I got smart and got the idea to start recording my donuts, and that was the beginning of the donut database. I was making as many sweet and fresh donuts as I could and typing their powers into my spreadsheet by hand. I wrote 66 of this exact recipe into the spreadsheet. 4 hyper habans, 1 hyper tanga, 2 hyper payapas, and 1 hyper lum. This gave me what looked like great donuts, and once I finally got my holy grail sparkling alpha encounter power donut, I left Ansha behind for a little bit, and I went to go see how actually good it was. I took this sparkling dark encounter 3 alpha donut into an Absol rift, and I got severely disappointed. I couldn't notice any major difference in the number of spawns compared to other rifts I'd been in with the same layout. I still wound up getting 2 shiny Absol, one of which was alpha, which is pretty cool. But this encounter power nonsense threw a massive wrench into my plan. I was so excited to share a reliable way to get the most overpowered donuts imaginable. So I had put the donut database on hold and I pivoted to figuring out what the heck encounter power actually did. And you can check out that previous video for the testing methods that I used and the ultimate result. The TLDR is encounter power only reduces respawn time. It doesn't increase spawns. I was devastated at this result. This was the best use case that I could think of for rainbow donuts at the time. But there was still that lingering question. How much better than non-rainbow donuts are they? Well, to answer that question, I would need more donuts. And a lot of them. Manually typing was not going to be enough. It was time to really get smart. If I was going to meet the sample sizes required to get some actually reliable numbers, I'd need a way to record donuts without typing. Thankfully, my career covering Pokemon RNG and glitches has given me some programming experience, and I already have Visual Studio Code installed, and I had an idea for how to tackle this problem. optical character recognition, which lets a computer program look at an image, look for readable words in the image, and convert it to text that I can use in a spreadsheet. Now, I'd like to say that I'm a programming genius and I was able to whip this up in no time. There are some people that I know that could have done it in like a couple hours. But I've been hearing a lot about Google's latest AI model, Gemini 3, and how it's been getting really good. So I decided to give it a shot to see if it could point me in the right direction. And to my surprise, it wasn't just pretty good, it was insanely good. I told it what I wanted, and it selected Python as the language of choice, which is probably what I would have used myself. And it spit out an entirely working prototype with 2 sentences. Now, this first version didn't have any kind of user interface. It was just a command line tool, but it would prompt me to draw a little box on my screen. And then I'd drag that around my donut results from my capture card, and it would take those powers and save them into a CSV, which is like a spreadsheet data format. And this was great, but I knew we could do better, so I put in 2 more prompts. 1, after defining the screen capture area, put the program into monitoring mode so I can trigger another capture by pressing spacebar, and then create a simple user interface with a couple of buttons to trigger the screen capture and monitor modes with a couple of input fields so I can put in things like the donut recipe, the type of donut, the flavor scores, and then like show me a preview of what it's capturing. And that was it. What you're seeing on screen here was the final version. It legitimately took 3 prompts and like 30 minutes, and I went from having nothing to having an insane tool that just worked. Now, you might have your own opinions on using AI, and trust me, I am with you. I'm aware of the threat and harm it causes to creatives, the environmental impact of data centers, and the insane state that the US economy is in, where a third of the S&P 500 is hinged upon 8 companies spending billions to try and automate people's jobs away. And for some reason, if China beats us to it, we all die. Allegedly. It's a strange and stressful time to be a human, but I have to admit what Gemini did here was very impressive. Anyway, with this tool in hand, I now only had one job: make donuts. And so I did for 2 days, 2 full work days. I just made hundreds of donuts with the little program that could. But what did I learn? Well, it's time to put my business degree to work at the only thing it's useful for: analyzing spreadsheets and making PowerPoints. Welcome to a PowerPoint about donuts, presented by Papa Hefe. We'll do a quick overview of the data. I recorded 1,099 donuts. Like I said, it took me about 12 to 16 hours. And if you look at the table over there, there's a few donuts that only have like 5 or 10-ish donuts made. Those are not really included in the results. Those were ones that I did as like sanity checks or recipes that I just wanted to see if they were like a little more efficient to make use of the berries that I had available. But ultimately, the only ones that I used for the data were the ones that had more than 100 sample size. We have 3 big questions to answer. How much better is that slightly stronger rainbow bonus from the tooltip? Do rainbow donuts outperform the pure sweet or pure sour donuts that people are making with Kasibs and Tangas? And does maximizing the flavor score outperform the bare minimum threshold of getting level 3 powers, which is around 360 to 420 flavor score? I know Austin John recently made a video where he suggested, in order to conserve berries, that people only make donuts with about 420 flavor score to hit the minimum to get like a sparkling power level 3 and then maybe another level 2. So we're going to find out if using more berries than the minimum is actually worth it. Well, let's knock something easy out of the way: the sparkling power type distribution. Because I made so many sparkling power donuts, I was able to map out the distribution of which types I was getting, and it looks like they're all converging towards a simple 1 in 19 chance. So sparkling power all types is just as common as any of the other types. It's just a 1 in 19 roll. Now, what about sparkling power appearance? Rainbows versus that pure sweet Tanga donut. Well, the pure sweet Tanga donut kind of stomps. 98.51% of the sparkling donuts I made had sparkling power on them out of 201, compared to 72.77 for the rainbow donut, which kind of makes sense, right? Because the rainbow donuts are pulling from 2 pools. So sometimes you might get, like, in my case, I was making sweet and sour donuts. So sometimes when I didn't get sparkling power, I probably got item plus big haul or something. But ultimately, if you're shiny hunting, I mean, use the 8x Tangas. They're cracked. All right, but what about the levels? We want to see if that rainbow bonus gives us some extra levels, a higher chance of getting level 3. And it does not compete with the Tanga donuts. The Tanga donuts were getting level 3 35% of the time compared to the rainbow donuts 20%. But That's actually pretty impressive considering that 25% of the time-ish, it's 27.23 in the number here, I wasn't even getting sparkling power. So there's definitely some kind of boost going on here in terms of the levels, and we'll see it pan out later when we look at the item power donuts, because I had much bigger samples for the spread of item power donuts across a bunch of different sour levels. Now what about alpha power? Alpha power, a similar story, but not quite as drastic. The highlighted section here in pink is non-alpha, so 68% of my Tanga donuts did not roll alpha power, which means that like 31-ish, 32% of them did, compared to only about 24, 25% of the rainbow donuts rolling alpha power. And when it rolled alpha power, it was always level 2 or level 3 on both of them. But the 8X Tanga rolled level 3 23% of the time. That's pretty incredible. And just to really wrap that all up, what about sparkling plus alpha power, the holy grail for the Shalfa hunters out there? The 8X Tangas are the king. 30% of the time, out of 201 donuts, I got sparkling power and alpha power at the same time, compared to only 11% of the time. So it seems pretty conclusive that, at least for shiny hunting, rainbow donuts are not that useful, at least when compared to the best possible shiny hunting donut. But let's get to item power. We'll knock out the easy one first, just like before. Item power type distribution. The data suggests it's a 1 in 6 chance. So item power berries isn't any more or less common than treasure, candies, or special. That's pretty clear to me here. Item power itself, when you're using sour donuts, actually seems pretty common. When it came to all of the sour donuts I made, they all rolled item power. Over the sample size that I did it on, that seems pretty significant. There might be a small chance of getting like a mega conservation and big haul, but no item power. But I didn't hit it over 600, 700 plus donuts. And then once again, because the donut that I made was a sweet and sour combo, it had the chance to pull from the sweet pool of sparkling powers and such. So 12% of the time it didn't roll item power, but that's actually pretty good. I don't think it's good enough to make 4 Tanga, 4 Kasib actually viable as a use for your Tangas and Kasibs. Like, you might as well just make 8X Kasib donuts and 8X Tanga donuts and just get level 3 powers because they're so much better. But it's a nice data point. Now, this is where things start to get really interesting. We're seeing our first real display of what that rainbow bonus looks like. As you can see on the chart over there, as you go up in sour score from 415 to 425 to 465 to 720 to 760, it's a pretty smooth curve up in the rate at which you get item power level 3. The big standout here is the 420 rainbow just stomps all the other donuts in its weight class. So this was the clearest evidence I could see of what the rainbow bonus actually is. It makes item power 2 and item power 3 much more common relative to donuts in that same flavor class. But the 760 donuts are just ridiculous. I mean, look at the difference between 4 Rosalie and 4 Kasib, a 720 sour donut, and the 8X Kasib 760 sour. Almost 30% more item power level 3. Even if you take the lower bound of the 95% confidence interval, it's 86.11%, which is almost 20 more than the 720. So it's really worth it to make those 8X Kasib donuts and max out that sour score if you want to get level 3 powers. So I am not an advocate for spending time in front of Ansha making low-powered donuts. I think you should be spending more time playing the game and not resetting donuts in front of Ansha. So my blanket recommendation here is use your Kasib's 8X and just get that level 3 bonus. Now, what about big haul power? This massively overcharges your item power. And when it comes to the rainbows, it's not very good, unfortunately. 75% of the time, I didn't even get big haul. And then 19.9% of the time, I got item and big haul together. But if you look at the non-rainbow donuts, every time I rolled big haul, I also rolled item. And Once again, I don't know if this is like guaranteed. There's probably a small chance. Maybe there's not. We'll probably find out someday. But over 500 pure sour donuts I made. If I rolled big haul, I also rolled item. So that's pretty promising, right? So this was another good one that showed off a little bit of that rainbow buff with a little more granularity. We're going to focus on the chances of getting a second level 3 power here. And you'll notice that all of the donuts in the 400-ish sour range were unable to roll a level 3 on their second power. But the rainbow donut, the 4 Tangas and 4 Kasibs, it's 89% to get your second power at level 2 or level 3. So there's definitely a buff. The rainbow donuts are definitely doing something, but when you go to the 760 sour and the 760 sweet, it just flips the opposite way, and more often than not, you're going to be seeing level 3 on your first and second power. The sweet donuts are a little weird. Sparkling power really doesn't like going up to level 3 as much as item power does. At least based on this data here, might be something worth exploring a little bit more in the future, but I'm beginning to see the pattern here. The highest single score donuts are still the most effective if you want particular powers at the highest level possible and in the best combinations. Your 8x hyper Tanga berries for shiny hunting, your 8x hyper Kasib berries for berry farming, those are the best. But rainbow donuts around 420 flavor scores do have some advantages over those non-rainbow donuts with similar flavor scores. And that bonus seems to be in the likelihood of rolling level 2 or level 3 on their flavor powers. This is indeed a slightly stronger bonus, as the tooltip suggests. I wish it was a little bit more substantial, but at least we figured it out, right? But this begs the question, what do you do with all of your berries that aren't named Hyper Tanga or Hyper Kasib? You make rainbows with them. Why not? You know, you don't have unlimited Tangas and unlimited Kasibs. You might as well use your other 4 and 5 star berries to make rainbow donuts and gamble on that chance, as opposed to making middling donuts without the rainbow buff. But this, of course, begs the question, what are the recipes? I was the sandwich recipe guy. Today, I'm the donut recipe guy. But first, we need to figure out the recipes, because this is not a straightforward problem. You see, making rainbow donuts involves creating combinations of multiple components with a variety of scores to try and yield 2 or more equal sums. And if that sounded like a line from a math textbook from a class that you didn't pay attention to, that's because it is. It's called combinatorial mathematics. Now, I could have manually mixed and matched the berries in combinations of 8 in-game, try my best to piece together the individual recipes that yield the rainbow donuts for the different flavor types. And at first, that's what I was doing. That's how I came up with the rainbow donut that I used for the sweet and fresh testing from earlier. But like the green goblin mask in the corner, AI called me back into its clutches. This was a very solvable problem for a computer program, and I did not take combinatorial mathematics. I know what it is, but I didn't take it. Surprisingly, this actually took a bit more prompting than the optical character recognition tool. But ultimately, I was able to vibe code my way to exactly what I wanted. Given just a table of only the 4 and 5 star hyperspace berries, output combinations of 8 berries that yield 2 or more matching flavor scores above a certain threshold. Otherwise, I'd get a million results, right, with all the citrus berries and Guga. I added a couple parameters that let me pick a particular target score and make it a little easier for me to browse the results. And what I got were 3 groups of recipes that I think will be very useful. So first, we've got the Tanga-Less sweet recipes. These recipes let you make sparkling power donuts with 430 sweet scores using all the berries that aren't named Tanga or Kasib. Their performance should work out similar to the sweet-focused rainbow donuts I used in the PowerPoint. And thanks to Anubis, we now know the exact mechanics for sparkling power, and with Shiny Charm and Sparkling 2, you're getting 1 in 683 odds. And with Sparkling 3, that jumps up to 1 in 585 odds. And there's a benefit of getting a shiny quest with a guaranteed shiny in your hyperspace portal, which is pretty cool. Alpha power, the news is not quite as nice for the rainbow donuts, as we talked about. Over the 257 sweet combo rainbow donuts, I only got alpha power 22% of the time, but when I did, it was always level 2 or 3. Anubis provided the rates for alpha power as well, and level 2 gets you 21% alpha rates, and level 3 is a massive 51%, which makes sense because I was using alpha 3 power with no sparkling power when I got my 2 shiny alpha mudkips for the shiny hunting video. So 51%, that kind of explains why I was getting so many alpha mudkips. And if you're willing to take the gamble, there is a 10.89-ish% chance based on my 257 sample size that you roll sparkling power and alpha power together. So you could hit the jackpot, it might be worth it. But ultimately, if you're a shiny alpha hunter, you're going to want to use those 8x hyper Tanga berry donuts. I think a better use of your spare 4 and 5 star berries is to help you get more berries and items. Now, if you're the type that enjoys battle zones and the rogue mega battles, which I think are pretty fun, then the battle zone and rogue mega rainbow recipes are for you. These are really simple recipes that make use of almost every other 4 to 5 star hyper berry. And those extra offensive and defensive powers can really make those battles much faster and easier. Do not sleep on them. Another interesting one here is the spicy, sour, bitter triple rainbow, which is the only useful triple rainbow that I found. The major upside here is it's the only time where the mega charge and conservation powers in the sour pool are useful. And there's always, of course, a chance that you roll berries or big haul on that triple rainbow, and you basically get a free berry farming donut out of your boss fighting donut, which is pretty cool. But if you hate the battle zones and the rogue mega battles, then you might want another use for your less valuable berries, and that's why we have the Kasib-Less sour rainbow recipes. These recipes will let you make item power donuts with 430 sour scores without disturbing your stores of Tangas or Kasibs. And performance-wise, they should be quite generous with item power, right? Just like we covered. I was getting item power 87.96% of the time, and 86% of those were level 2 or level 3. Now, we already know the downside. It's that you only really want item power berries, and that's just a raw 1 in 6 chance every time you roll item power, which means that only about 14.66% of the donuts you make with these sour rainbow recipes are going to get you more berries. But remember, these are your throwaway donuts. You're using these to just hop into 4-star portals, do some ball busting, and build up your stockpiles of Tangas and Kasibs when they get low. And don't forget about the big haul power, similar to alpha power with sparkling donuts. I rolled a big haul around 25% of the time, and it was always level 2 or 3. So that's going to help you out with item farming as well. And you've got like a 19 to 20-ish% chance of getting item and big haul together. And if you get item power berries and big haul together, you get a massive influx of hyperberries if you go into a medium or large zone. Now, there is also a case to be made for just mixing your non-Kasib sour berries together and try to get the sour number as high as possible. Given what we've shown with the chance of level 3 item power scaling up with flavor power quite smoothly, these two combinations that I'm showing on screen will get you 560 and 600 sour score respectively, balancing your non-Kasib berries as best as possible, letting your Kasibs stock up. The name of the game here is putting your less valuable berries to work, freeing you from the Ansha reset nightmare, back into the portals, playing the game. Time spent in front of Ansha is time you could be spending busting loot Pokeballs and getting more good berries for your various endeavors. So all these numbers and theory that I've collected, they're great, but what about a real world example? Does this strategy actually yield a positive feedback loop of berries? Well, I ran a little test. I did 30 minutes of berry farming. I made 8 donuts. I didn't spend any time resetting an Ansha. I just took the first 8 donuts I got. I used the rainbow recipes here. It took me 64 berries. It makes sense. 8 donuts, 64 berries. Of those 8, I was only really able to use 5 within 30 minutes, and I still got 100 berries. Now, I only hit level 4 portals, because those are the only ones that give you Koba through Rosalie. Only a single one of the donuts I made even had item power berries on it. The rest of them didn't even have item power. They were like battle donuts. So I'd honestly call this a pretty low ball attempt, and I still came up very positive. I got 13 Tangas and 7 Kasibs. So yeah, I would say this strategy is worth your time. It's way better than just sitting in front of Ansha resetting donuts to get the absolute perfect one. Just use your less valuable berries and go bust some balls. That'll do it for this video. I hope you really enjoyed it and got some good information out of this. I hope you use some of these donut recipes, share them around. I think they're pretty cool. I will have links down in the description to my donut database that you can make a copy of if you want to take a look at it. And I'll also put the donut finder and donut solver Python scripts up on GitHub. So if you want to use those programs that AI made for me for yourself, I mean, go right ahead. Thank you all so much for watching. Click the like button, maybe try out the hype button down there. I hear it's pretty useful. That's it for me. This has been Papa Hefe. Peace.